Hi to everyone there at the People's Orchestra. My name's Alison, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to write a press release. Hopefully these tips will help you promote the People's Orchestra successfully. So I'm going to share my screen with you to get started. And hopefully you can all see this okay. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the aim of the workshop today. By the end of the tutorial, you should be able to understand the style and tone of voice for writing a press release, the type of content to put in there, and the importance of getting it signed off by your managers. So generally, you may not know what a press release is. So it's all about sending information to the local or national media or magazines or radio about what the People's Orchestra is doing. It needs to have the essential information in it so that the media can then report on it in the news. They may want to follow up and get more pictures, more video. So anything you think that the local newspaper would want to run, that's the kind of thing that's going to be in a press release. So it needs to be informative, it needs to be snappy, it needs to offer as much in terms of photos and information as possible. So the people that the press release is for are things like, if you live in the Midlands, local newspapers like the Express and Star or the Birmingham Mail. It could be the BBC News on television, or Midlands Today, Central News regionally, or it could be radio stations like BBC Radio WM or Classic FM, or anything that is covered by the media really. It could be websites as well. For your content, think about these 5 facts that must be in every press release. They're the essential core of any press release really. It's who, what, why, when, and where. And if you can always cover those 5 aspects, then you're onto a winner. So when I say who, it's who is it about? So you're always going to be mentioning the People's Orchestra because you're the essence of what you're trying to promote. But it could be somebody else who the who is. So it could be if you're talking about volunteers or orchestra members or the conductor, or maybe it's somebody you're doing a partnership with. But the who needs to be in there, the human element. When you say what, it's what's going on. Are you going into town to do a promotion? Are you performing somewhere? Are you doing a concert? Are you calling for volunteers or apprentices? It's what you're trying to promote. Then there's the why, and this is when you need to explain the activity you're doing and why you're doing it. Is it because you want to get more volunteers to make the People's Orchestra stronger? Is it because you're doing apprenticeships or offering school leavers places to help with their education and chances of work? Is it because you're doing something to spread the love of music, or because schools don't tend to do as much music education anymore? And it's that why element that can make it more newsy. So it's important to put something in there, but also make sure it's always accurate. When I say when, this is when is it currently taking place? When's the event happening? And you need to think ahead, because if you've got a concert coming up in a month or 2 weeks' time, then you want to start promoting it as early as possible. If you send a press release the day before a concert, you can't guarantee it will get in the media that soon. They may have other questions, and you also need time for people to see it. Something could go on a website, but people may not read about it for another week. So think about that when you're planning when to send your press release out. And where, simple, where is it happening? Where's the concert taking place? Where can people do their apprenticeships? What's the office? Is it working from home? That kind of thing. So this is the format of a press release. Your manager will have a template that they'll send you, but this is what it should look like. It will have the People's Orchestra logo here in the top corner and the word press release. And that means that the media who receive it will be clearly marked what it is, and they'll be used to receiving press releases as well. The date will be in the other corner, and you'll have a headline here that sums up what the story is about in a catchy kind of way. And then you'll have your introduction, which is your first paragraph, and that's a summary to lead people in to get more information. So this needs to as well be quite snappy. You don't have to give all the information, but just say, imagine you're down the cafe and you just have one sentence to say what you're working on. Think about summarising that. So in this case, it's residents of Birmingham and the surrounding area are being given the opportunity to rekindle their passion for playing with the new local Rusty Players Orchestra. And then you go on to add the more detail and information, background information, and always have a quote, which comes near the end. And this will be either someone who leads the orchestra, it could even be a volunteer, it's somebody you've talked to or interviewed, or if they've asked you to paraphrase, then always make sure that they're happy with what you've written about them. And then you have the summary and information where people can contact you or get more from the internet. And that's very important, because if the media do print the article as you've sent it, or maybe tamper with it a bit but put the information in, you want as many people as possible to know how they can contact you and get more and actually take part. The notes to editors is normally information that's just for the media. So it's things like if you've got video or higher res images, if it's a glossy magazine, say, they might not want something that's very large. Well, they will want something that's very large, but you might not want to send them something that's that large because it'll clog up the email. So often send photos that are reduced to about 250. And then if you've got like 1.5 meg photos, keep them back, but say that you've got them so they can contact you. And you'll obviously need the email and when the media can get hold of those. So in terms of content, as I was saying, it always has to be factually correct. Something may sound exciting and you might want to jazz it up, but if it's not right, then the media will not trust you. And if they do print it and they get some feedback from that it's incorrect, then they won't trust you again. So really make sure it's right and it's accurate. Write in really simple and easy to understand language. When I was training as a journalist, I was told to write things so that even your gran would understand them, because you have to reach out to all walks of life. And the simpler and easier it is to understand and concise without all the extra wording that maybe you want to put in but it's very elaborate, that can confuse people. So just keep it straight to the point and the most interesting thing in your introduction. Keep it neutral as well. If you go over the top and make it too salesy, the media tend to distrust what you're sending and it might ignore it. Write in the third person as well. So instead of, you don't want to say, we are doing this. What you want to say is the People's Orchestra is doing this. And when you're quoting people, quote them with their name and very formally, and then put their quote in. It's also important to remember that organisations are singular, so it'll be the People's Orchestra is, not are, but your musicians are, because they're a group of people. When you include information about the TPO, remember to put how they can book tickets and the web address, and at least include one quote. You could have more if you've got a partner especially. So say it's a press release about something the TPO is doing with the Commonwealth Games, you might be able to get a comment from somebody at the Commonwealth Games as well. And again, you'd have to get their approval that they're happy with it and to see the press release before you send it out. But it needs to add something to the story, so you don't want it to be bland. Try and make it interesting and that moves the story along, not just repeats what you've got in the story. So I've got an example here. It could be one if you're calling for more members of the orchestra, you've got a clarinet player, remember to quote their full name. The media do not like to just put a surname or a first name. If you know what area they're from, if it's for a regional newspaper, that's great. Here he says, being part of the orchestra has enriched my life and I recommend it to anyone who loves music. So something a bit punchy that would sound interesting if you're reading it. Images and video, very important. Always send out a press release accompanied by images and also a note if you have video to go with it. The TV, especially, they're interested in video, and a lot of newspapers on their website now using video as well. And it's something that you can send the press release out and maybe publicise it through social media as well and tie those things in. So images and video go a long way these days. Try and make sure that you've taken your own photos because that's better for the media. In terms of copyright, really never take a picture off Google Images. You don't know who owns it and they could then demand money. So think about pictures that the TPO already owns or has taken. If there's people with close shots, it's just one person in it, make sure that they've already given permission for it to be used to the media, because they'll suddenly see their face maybe all over the internet or in a paper and get a surprise. If when the photo was taken, they've already signed a permission form, you don't need to keep telling them each time. Add a caption when you're sending the photos to explain who's in it or what's happening. So it could be, say for this picture here, where it's got the conductor and quite a large group, it could just be members of the People's Orchestra rehearsing for the latest concert. It could be something as general as that. If you tend to have a close-up of one person, it would be nice to put their name in. So conductor, I don't know, Brian Jones, leading the orchestra, something like that. As I said, use your own photos. And when you're deciding which photos to use, think about diversity, think about having a mix of races and ages and genders, because the media are really keen on that, but also you want to represent the wider public. And so diversity is important. If the story is, for instance, about school leavers and you want it to be about younger people, then pick a photo that represents that as well. So mainly go for younger people. But again, you can look at genders and races in that too. After you've written the press release, the main thing to do is double check it. Check it for spelling and grammar. Sometimes when you've written things yourself, you don't see it. So that's why in a newsroom, you have the news desk who'll go over everything just to check for mistakes. And in your case, you'll have somebody senior to you or a colleague just to read it over again, and they might spot something. Your manager will also need to see it to approve and check it, because you don't want to be contacting the media until your organisation is happy with it. Get approval for the quotes and the person quoted, and while it's getting signed off by a manager, then take time to get all the photos and video in place, because once you send it out, you could get a call immediately from a journalist saying, I want that photo and I need it in 10 minutes. So have everything in place before you start to email out. So hopefully that's just a few useful tips to help you in writing a press release. Just remember that if it's something that you would say to somebody, oh, this is really interesting, this is what's happening, that's the essence of your press release, what it's all about, those 5 key things: who, what, why, when, where, and have fun with it. Good luck. Bye.